everyone. Welcome back to the Imperfect Podcast. I am your host, Kirsten Pfeiffer, and today I am joined by my friend Nikko. We actually just recently met and we connected a lot on so many different things. Nikko also has experience in the film industry, and she's also started a lot of businesses and just is all around such an amazing person with such a cool life story. So we'll kind of just dive in, and I would love if you could just tell people a little bit more about your story.
Yeah, no, I mean, first, it's so funny because, again, how we met, I think that's a fun thing to address right away. We met at one dinner, my twin sister and you were friends.
Yeah.
And we happened to be at a girls' dinner, and I think we just hit it off right away.
Yeah.
And you were telling me about some of the things that you've done, and I was telling you a little bit about my life. I think you had some precursors from being friends with my twin of like my story and some of the things I've gone through. So it was... You know, we just kind of instantly clicked. And
totally. It's funny too, because the way I met Micah was so random as well. I met her at a Halloween party, with just a bunch of random, and I was like a guest of someone there. So, but as soon as we met, and I actually met Alex, for her boyfriend first at the party. And he was like, oh, you need to meet my girlfriend. And then we just clicked, me and Micah, and then here we are. So I kind of love those random, unexpected connections. And I also have an affinity for twins because my mom is an identical twin. So anytime I see twins, I'm just like drawn to that. So anyway, continue. I'd love to hear more. No.
But it's funny because I think, just for everyone listening, the funny thing is we connected right away. And I think after our one dinner speaking, we got on the phone once, and I think we both made the decision of being like, we don't want to talk any further. Like, let's save it for this.
Yeah.
And so really, other than one dinner and a very short conversation on the phone being like, yeah, I'll come on your podcast.
Yeah.
We haven't really spoken. I think that's kind of cool because now we're going into a lot of things a little bit more fresh. But
absolutely.
Background of kind of why we, connected is, I guess what you had heard about me before is, I have MS, which stands for multiple sclerosis. I was diagnosed in 2018 on January 8th of 2018. Never forget that day. And it changed my life. And it's been, almost 4.5 years now.
Wow.
And well, not 4.5, I guess January was 4 years, but 4 years and a few months.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's been a journey. I think it's funny. I had dinner the other night with a group of people, and we were talking about like identity and, when you're growing up and really your 20s, you're building like your identity, like who you are. And something like this, when you're diagnosed with a crazy, autoimmune disease or any kind of condition in general, or a life-changing event happens, you lose your identity. So it's really been, the past 4 years have been this journey of getting to not myself, but like a new sense of self.
Yeah. Wow. That's beautiful. It's actually, I was listening on the way over here to another podcast, Brene Brown's podcast, and they were talking about the author of this new book called Bittersweet was on. And she was talking about how as creatures, we are, programmed to experience pain, but then also to transform that pain into beauty. And I think sometimes when you go through struggles, and especially chronic conditions, like I have a chronic stomach condition, which obviously is not as life-altering as MS. But
to you it is.
Yeah, and it was years undiagnosed of just like pain and bloating and all these things that sound very LA and girly. But in my healing, a lot of it came from my doctor diagnosing what it was and putting me through treatment. And like I said, it's chronic, so it will never actually go away completely.
Is there a name for this condition?
SIBO, which stands for small intestinal bacterial overgrowth.
Fun.
Yeah. But, I had to do a lot of inner healing with that because of what you talked about of identity. Because I'm not feeling good about myself, it's the pain, but then I also physically didn't feel like I looked great and all these things that what am I putting my identity in? So I think, and that's just one example. And I think that when you go through things like this, it's just interesting to hear how you've kind of had that shift as well of realizing what things you put your identity in.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, look, for me, to get into the extremes of it, I went from being, for all intents and purposes, a healthy girl in her 20s who was active and fit and healthy. You know, I always joke, I'm like, I was like 80% vegan, you know how LA is me. But, you know, I lost my ability to walk. I lost my ability to see properly, to talk properly. And it's been like a crazy, like, it's funny when I think about it. I haven't, you know, ever shared in a public way, like this, kind of my journey. So I'm really happy to do it, you know, here with you.
Yeah. Well, I'm so honored and thank you. I mean, I know it takes vulnerability and like it costs something. So I really appreciate you opening that up, because I know even in the brief time that we've spoken, I've been so inspired by your journey and your strength. And I know that people listening will be as well. Can you just start by explaining a little bit what MS is? Like, obviously I've heard of it and I know a little bit about it, but just to kind of put everyone on the same playing field.
Okay. So MS stands for multiple sclerosis. And basically, to sum it up, it's when your body and your immune system, they think it's from an overactive immune system, it kind of turns on itself and it starts to attack your nervous system, particularly the myelin sheath that's protecting your nerves. So your body, the best way I can describe it, like, your body stops making connections and it's like you become like a bit of I joke all the time, I'm like, I'm a frayed phone charger. Things just aren't connecting properly. And it affects people all in different ways, because what happens is when your body's attacking the myelin sheath, it creates scars. And what they call them is lesions in your brain. And it can be in your brain and in your spine. In my case, they've been in both. I got like over 30 of them between my brain and spine, which is nuts. Gosh. I think, by the time I was actually diagnosed, like, doctors, when they saw my MRIs, they're like, we don't know how you were functioning as long as you were without being hospitalized. So, but again, it's interesting because it's a disease that kind of acts differently in everybody. Like, you can have similarities with other MS, people who are diagnosed with MS, but like, it all depends on what parts of the brain are like affected and what areas were kind of attacked. Gotcha. So it's no two cases are really exactly alike.
Wow. That's crazy. And so you said you were diagnosed in 2018. What was your journey like leading up to that? Like, how long were you feeling the symptoms? Like, was it a shock to you? What was kind of that whole experience like?
So it's interesting, because I think if I like carbon date it to like, oh, when did I really start having issues? I would say, you know, a few years prior, I started having like mental things, like where my ability to read was not great. I'm dyslexic, so I was already like, ooh, not the best reader anyway. But like, I started having issues reading and writing and processing information. Like, I was running a company at the time. I had started a company, and the person that noticed more than anyone was my dad. He's amazing. He would come out and visit me all the time. And he's a businessman. He's, you know, done well in his life. And he was like my consultant to everything. So he'd come out, we'd do these daddy-daughter date nights at like the Grove and like connect and like talk. And he noticed, he told my mom, he's like, you know, there's something going on with Nikko. I don't know what it is, but she's not like herself. There's something, he's like, I can't put my finger on it, but there's something wrong. And again, you know, at the time I was, you know, I'd started a business. I went through a really, you know, bad business breakup with the person I started the business with. And it was very stressful and there were lawsuits involved. And so my life and reality became very like heightened stress wise. And so I think those are my first symptoms. And then funny enough, after that, we had semi-settled that situation. I was dating a physician, a spine surgeon. And basically he was always like, God, there's like, what's up? Like, I just was like, not myself. Like, but again, he didn't know any different. I was kind of complaining. Like, I started having vision issues and hearing issues. And like, again, I thought I was just having like an emotional breakdown. I went and saw a therapist. I was like, okay, I need to go to therapy. Like, there's something wrong. I was actively trying to seek something out. And then, so mental stuff started turning to physical. So first physical symptoms were like, I had gotten numbness in certain areas of my body. And I was like, what is going on? Went to the doctor. They couldn't really figure out what's wrong. Then I started having vision issues. I'd wake up in the morning and have double vision for a period of time. But then it would go away. So it was like, I really just thought I was going crazy. And then I had finally, what was really weird is I started I went deaf in my right ear.
Wow.
And then it switched sides. And I'm like, okay, like I'm either losing my mind or there's something really wrong. And again, I was, kind of dating a physician at the time who's a spine surgeon. And let me tell you, MD stands for me doctor, like, cause they think they know everything. And he was not a neurologist. So, and he was like, you're fine. You're just a hypochondriac. There's nothing wrong with you. And you don't want, look, you're in your 20s. You don't want anything to be wrong with you. You're not going to believe that. Again, I was still hiking every day. I was super active. And, I finally was like, look, if I wasn't dating you, I would have been to a doctor yesterday. And I looked in Google and I Googled an ENT, ear, nose, and throat doctor for anyone. And I went there and they couldn't, again, find anything wrong, but they could tell like, ooh, there's hearing loss. I did a hearing test. Like, you know what? I'm going to prescribe you on a low dose of steroid. And if it doesn't go away, we were coming up to holiday to do Christmas and New Year's. If it doesn't go away, when you come back, we'll do a CT scan, which again, you cannot find MS from a CT scan. It has to be an MRI and a spinal tap.
Wow.
Fun fact. Not a fun fact because it's not fun to do. But so he's like, if it doesn't go away in a few weeks, we'll do a CT scan. And I was like, okay. So I took the steroids. Now, steroids are very interesting because they're the one drug that actually suppresses the inflammatory response that MS is responding to, right? Okay. So I took these steroids, like I was on an oral taper, went to Florida, and I barely could even get on the plane. And this is when I just started taking the steroids. I had 2 days where I was not feeling well. I felt like I really couldn't move. I don't think I left the room of my parents' guest room for 2 days. And finally the steroids kicked in. I'm like, oh my God, I feel good. I was like, okay. Wow. So I took the steroids up until I was, it was I think 2 weeks or something. It could be a week and a half or a week. I don't know, something like that. And then I was going to, LA story. I was going to Tulum for New Year's. And I went with a bunch of my friends. They were meeting us down there. And I stopped taking the steroids when I was there. I was done with them. By the way, am I going too deep or is
No. I love this. I'm a detail girl. So I'm loving this.
Girl, I'm like, this is who was there. This is what I was wearing. This is what I was doing. I'm such a detailed person when I tell stories. So anyway, I go to Tulum. I'm off now the steroids and I'm having an amazing time. I'm with my best friends. Everyone flew in and we were so excited to bring in the new year. I was like, I'm going this new year being I'm so optimistic. My mantra for that year was forgive yourself for the past and be open to its future and endless possibilities. Wow. I actually was I went up on some ruins in Tulum and was totally had this mantra with some random girl that I met. I know this is such a funny story and came up with that mantra. Yeah. Meanwhile, I didn't know in the matter of days, my whole life is going to change. Wow. So I'm in Mexico. I'm in Tulum. And to be honest, I was, drinking and partying and doing things that you shouldn't do if you have something going on, but I didn't know. Right. And I went cave diving in a cenote. By cave diving, I mean, I didn't have diving equipment, like a breathing tank or anything, but we would go and you snorkel, you go into the caves. And I was again coming off of steroids. So I was full of energy and everyone was like, dude, Nikko, chill out. I'm going everywhere. And I was deep down in a cenote, which is a cave. And I wanted to come up for air and my vision went double when I was down there. So it's crazy. I actually have this on video. One of my friends that was there filmed this. Wow. I freaked out and I couldn't see. And when you have double vision, I don't know which air pocket is the right one. So I was lost for air. So I came up quick and I smashed my head into the rocks and I split my head open. And I come out of the water and again, bleeding, whatever. And I'm a little dazed and they take the flippers off. Everyone's like, you okay? Are you okay? And my feet were numb. And I was like, oh, that's weird. And I'm like, oh, maybe from the flippers, right? So that following night was this full moon party. Okay. So I just want to get my thing. And I went, some of my friends had left and I was kind of there myself. And I met up with some friends at this party. I'm dancing and I feel all of a sudden the numbness of my feet trickling up my legs. Wow. And I thought, I'm like, maybe it's the shoes I'm wearing. Like, I don't know. But I was wearing like flat little sandals. And anyway, I leave the party and I have some girl that's there and I had a house. So I let her stay with me. And I wake up in the morning and now the numbness is like from my thighs down. Wow. It's like this trickling up thing. And I remember hearing this voice in my head that was like, enjoy this moment because you're never going to be able to do this again. And I don't know where that was from or what. Again, I was on a little bit of another planet, but I remember being like, I don't care. I'm having the best time. And I really was. It was such a fun night. And so next day I was leaving, but I wanted to go to, there's some ruins there called the Koba ruins. And they were closing them to the public where you can no longer walk on them. Wow. And I was like, I got to get to those ruins. So tell me why, not feeling my legs, I get in a stick shift car, drive an hour and a half through the jungle with some random girl I don't know. But this is like kind of my mentality at the time. And I climbed these ruins, not feeling my legs. Wow. Like I actually didn't have energy and I was starting to be like, I was actually starting to get concerned. But in my mind, I'm like, I hit my head. I got a cut. I'm in an old cave, maybe some kind of bacteria. I'm like, I'll deal with it when I get back to the States. I kept like making excuses for what was happening. And I get to, the ruins. I had some guy on some hut thing. I convinced him to like drive me this girl up to it and I climbed them, came up with that intention. Yeah. And by the time of, funny enough, I broke up with the guy that I was seeing at the time.
The spinal surgeon?
I broke up with him in Mexico. I was like, this is done. It's not going anywhere later. But I called him and when I was like, look, I'm heading back to the States. I think there's something wrong. And like, I'm going to need you to pick me up from the airport. Yeah. And he was like, okay. And so I could barely get on the plane and barely get off the plane. He picks me up. And the next day I was furniture shopping for the studios. I had this like big budget and I'm like, I brought my designer friends and I'm in this furniture store. And I woke up that morning, by the way, I couldn't feel anything now from my chest down. So now from my boobs down, I cannot feel my body, but I can move it. So I'm like, okay. And I had a doctor appointment. The follow-up was the next day. I'm like, I'll just wait. Anyway, I couldn't wait at the furniture place. I basically like collapsed, rushed me to the hospital, where again, I wasn't fully taking it seriously. I was even like, look, I need to get my computer. I have work to do. Like I need to get things, like this is so inconvenient. I was just in total denial. And at the hospital, they did, they kind of were like checking me out. So I do the MRI. It was like 2 a.m. and I'll never forget this. And this is on January 8th. This resident walks in who was a resident neurologist and she's like, hi. And I'm like, hey. And she's like, I think we're going to need to get Phil. Phil's my ex. That was the doctor at the hospital. And I'm like, okay. She's like, I'm like, is there something wrong? And she's like, I just really think you're going to need some support right now. And I'm like, okay, I'm an adult. I think he's like on call. And any doctors, you guys know that they know what that is. They were like working, doing late night surgeries, whatever. I go, if there's something wrong, I need you to tell me right now. She's like, are you sure? I'm like, wouldn't you want to like, yes, I'm sure.
That anxiety
absolutely.
of like, go get someone. I'm like, oh gosh. Anytime my doctor calls me, I'm like, just the call coming in gives me anxiety.
It's like, get to the point. None of us have time for this. Like none of us have like the bandwidth for this, especially when, you feel like something's wrong. Yeah. So, anywho, she puts my MRI on the screen. And again, you could have showed me tic-tac-toe and I wouldn't have known the difference. But it's my brain. I'm like thinking, oh, look at all those pretty colors like in the brain. That's interesting. And she's like, I'm so sorry. She said, you see those? And I go, yeah. And there are these, again, little speckles all over the picture of my brain. She's like, those are lesions. And we need to do a spinal tap on you immediately. And I need to do an MRI of like the rest of your brain and like your spine, like your thoracic, your lumbar, whatever, like your whole, basically an MRI from brain to your tailbone. Wow. And I'm like, she's like, you either have, you ready for this? You either have cancer, MS, lupus, or some other disease that like mimics MS and lupus that you like die from. I will have to find the name because I don't remember it. So we need to figure out what this is. And, I'll give you a moment and we're going to come back and do the spinal tap. And I'm like, okay. And she like leaves and I can't even tell you the feeling of being in a hospital room, 2 a.m. And there had been so much going on. And I finally was like, oh my God, like I'm going to die. Like I thought I have cancer and it's been eating at my brain and that's what's going on. Wow. So my only time I got really emotional, sorry, I'm getting emotional. No, girl, no, we can't. We got mascara on, girl. We're not crying. I went into the restroom and I looked in the mirror and I was like, this is it. Wow. And my parents knew that I had been there, but I didn't really tell anyone I was there because I didn't want anyone to freak out. Meanwhile, they all known something was wrong for a while. Even my closest friends, I kept being like, I can't hear. Like there were all these things. And one of my best girlfriends, Britt, shout out Brittany Sarpey. I called her and I told her, like, she answered the phone. She's like, okay, what's going on? And she goes, there's no way they just told you that. And I go, Britt, they did. And she's like, I'm on my way. I don't know how this girl, you guys, she made it to the hospital in like probably like 15 minutes. She's like in the room.
Especially in LA. That is impressive.
She lives semi-close, but still, it was still really impressive. It was like, poof, I'm here. And I was like, she's like, best day to the rescue. And I was like, amazing. Oh my God, thank God someone's here. And anyway, so she comes in the room. The neurologist comes in, and then they haven't diagnosed me. I haven't done the next MRI and spinal tap yet. And I know this is such a long story.
No, but, I mean, it's a lot.
I've never told this like in like a public way. So she, she comes into the room. The neurologist then comes in and my girlfriend goes, I want you to tell me exactly what you just told her. Like, so she puts the thing on the screen, says the same thing. And now my girlfriend starts to tear up and I'm like, okay, this is real. I'm dying, you know? And then Phil, the guy that I had dated, I see him. I'm in a room, it's dark, and Britt's in there with me. We're kind of just sitting and quiet. Like neither of us know what to say to each other. Like funny enough, and I have these videos, I think I was playing with like Snapchat. Not that I show them to anybody or even posted them, but like just making fun. I was doing anything to like escape. But we were sitting in like silence a lot of the time, just like numb. Like what, what's going to happen? And, to make it clear, when you go through this, and we can get more into this later, but when you go through something like this, it's not just you. It's everyone around you that loves you. They go through this with you. So you're all diagnosed together, even though it's like my body, like it was happening to her. Like she went through that pain, my family, everyone, even Phil, Dr. Phil, he went through it too. But I remember seeing him. It's the room's kind of, the lights were off in our room. Again, now it's like, almost 3 a.m. And I see him running towards us and all these doctors stop him and grab him and turn a monitor towards him. And essentially I couldn't hear, but I knew they were sharing what happened. And I see him collapse to the floor, and mouth, I told her to wait, So he comes in the room and then I got a little bitch in my step and was like, I didn't say it, but it was more that to see there was something wrong with me and you told me there was nothing wrong with me and like, I'm going to die. And like, I hope you feel good right now, and it's not his fault, but I just was a little bitter in that moment. So from there, they rushed me off to, not rush me. It took some time. Let's back up real quick. They brought me over to do a spinal tap, which I couldn't feel my body from my chest down, but I could feel like inside. And a spinal tap is when they take a needle, yay big. Like I put my hands together for people that can hear this, and they're about a foot apart. And they put this into your spine, and then they suck fluid out of your spine. And it takes about 15 minutes. And it's dangerous because if you do something wrong, I mean, it's your spine, right? And I remember being in the room, they turned me on my side, and Phil was like, do you want me to come in with you? And I said no, because I knew, for some reason, if like my mom or someone there that I like knew, or even if Britt or anyone had been there, I might have been more of a baby. But like on my own, I'm like, I'm going to get through this, and I'm not going to be emotional. It was such a fucking lie because, can I curse? Sorry. It was such a lie because they said, he told me he could hear me screaming down the hall. Like, I mean, it's just so painful. And it's like, you're being stabbed in your spine. Anyway, so they do that, then they bring me to my next MRI, And this MRI lasted, no joke, like over 3.5 hours. I think it was around 4 hours because they had to do now my brain all the way to my lower spine. But the problem was in an MRI, I don't know if you've ever done one.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's not fun. Super claustrophobic.
Yeah.
You have to stay completely still. And I couldn't stay still because I was crying so much because I was like, look, sitting in there, I'm like, I now know something is wrong with me. And I know my life is never going to be the same. There's something, I'm either going to die or even if I have one of these other diseases, like I don't know what that means because I don't know enough about them.
Right.
You know, and it's so funny. I'm not funny, but the interesting part about it is when I was in there, I'm like, please be MS or lupus, please be MS or lupus. And that's such a weird thing to like be praying for. I'm like, please let it be one of these because like that means maybe I have I don't know. They pulled me out of the machine and as they, you know, slowly pull you out, your head's all strapped in, whatever. They, I remember seeing Phil standing there and the other doctor and he's just like tears are welling in his eyes. And I'm like, oh shit, like there's, you know, what else are they going to tell me now?
Right.
And he grabs my shoulder because I could feel my shoulder. And he goes, they're on your spine too.
Wow.
I was like, oh. So they unplug. They open the strap thing, the whatever. So I'm now free to get off the table if I wanted to. And I kind of sassfully went to be like, oh, well, this is just fucking great. You know, and I went to get off the table and now I couldn't move anything from my chest down. I hit the floor and I'm like, oh my God, I'm paralyzed. Like, and I'm thinking like, oh my God, they did this to me with the spinal tap. And I'm screaming at them, being like, I mean, it was like a nightmare moment. Like I lost my mind. I was screaming and I was so freaked out because I'm telling you, when you were like, move leg and you cannot move anything, it is, none of it felt real. Yeah. So they bring me off again to a room, they calmed me down. I don't know if they sedated me. I don't know what happened because I think I was swinging at people. I mean, it was not a good moment, you know, not like, you know, but I wanted everyone to get away from me. I'm like, don't touch me. I couldn't process it. Yeah. So then they bring me to like another room, like a holding room where they're waiting for my hospital room and then to get all their results. And then, you know, a bunch of my friends are there. And then one of my lesions on my spine was like, I feel like I'm going to say this wrong. It was on C5, which is close to C4, and C4 controls your breathing. Well, then I started having breathing issues, and I don't remember a lot. I know that my friends were in the room, and alarms started going off, and I don't remember anything. Wow. You know, I don't know if I had a major nerve attack or, you know, if I was having breathing issues or stopped breathing. You know, I don't know. And then I kind of remember coming to in a room by myself. And there was a ton of flowers in the room, so clearly people had been there. And I came to, and there was like 6 doctors that like walk in. I guess it was like, you know, the fellowship and the residents and like all their people in there right away. Like, do you care if we have these extra doctors in here, you know, for learning? And I'm like, I don't care. Can you just tell me like what is going on? And then that's when they tell me, like, we're so sorry, you have MS. Wow. And there was this part of me that was like horrified, but also like relieved of now I know what's going on. And then, you know, from that point on, because I'll pause, because I'll just keep going, that the fight really started.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing all that. I know it's like I said before, I know it costs something, and I know I can only imagine, like I've been, like I said, through this chronic stomach thing and then injuries from a car accident that have had chronic pain, and not knowing, I think the not knowing is what was hardest for me personally. And I know that obviously like I feel like it's insulting to even try to compare the two. No,
it's not. Because it's pain and everything's all relative. So your traumas are just as big to you and important in your world as mine. So
well, that's very gracious of you. I'm relating so much on a smaller level to what you're saying of just like the torment in your mind leading up to it. I mean, for me, it was just like, am I going crazy? I'm not crazy. Like, I'm going to push through this. And then the more you push through it, the more that your body reacts back of like, oh no, there's something actually wrong. And that like, just just carrying that burden. But then when you finally get some kind of diagnosis, even if it's not great news, it's just like, now I know what the problem is, quote unquote, and now we can move and actually fight this. And so thank you for sharing all of that, because I just, like I said, I know how sometimes just even like emotionally, when you're physically not feeling good, it so gets connected to your emotions and your identity, and am I still going to be able to do the same things? And it just swirls. And so thank you for going there, because I know it's not easy. And honestly, I am so like just inspired and blown away by your strength. So not even knowing that, like the first time I met you, and even just like now you can see on camera, like you're just like the most put together, like well-dressed, like not self-victimizing. Like I would have had no idea unless if you told me that this is
I had
something.
my moments. Trust me. It's been a journey, but I appreciate that. Like,
well, and then we were talking about it on the phone, and you know, at first we were going to have this recording like a few days after one of your treatments. And I was like, are you sure? Like we can take some time. Mm-hmm. And you said something to the effect of, I don't have any other options. I got to keep moving. And I was just like so blown away by that grit and that. Like I've shared this before on my podcast, I think at times, but my dad was diagnosed with a degenerative eye disease when I was a baby. And like same thing, like he just looked at himself in the mirror and he's like, I'm going to get through this at least until my kid, like his goal was I'm going to work long enough to be able to provide for my family and send my kids to college. And if I can do that, then like I'll have made it, because most people that have his condition go completely blind. So then he started to spiral of think of like, oh, well, how is this going to affect my life? Is this going to affect my ability to make an income and X, Y, Z? And he just had, when you told me that about like, I don't have another option, it just reminded me of that like strength that my dad had, which I really admire. And I just want to know, like, how do you find that strength? Like, where does that come from for you? And like, how do you stay positive in the midst of even those really hard times, like you said?
By the way, thank you for sharing that on your dad. Shout out, Dad. I think that, you know, it's the funny thing, like when you're saying all that, I think your dad had you guys. I have amazing people in my life. Yeah. You know, I have amazing like parents, family and friends. Yeah. And, you know, so it wasn't just for me.
Wow, that's beautiful.
But I think, I don't know. I think just there's so many. It's funny, that question is such like a loaded one of like emotions. That's the thing I felt relating to what in the moment you were saying about your dad and having you guys. But I'm sorry, what was the question exactly?
No, just like how you maintain that, because I know there's moments for me, even in my health things that I deal with, I'm just like, why me? You know, and like, that's a really slippery slope to go down. And, you know, so many people like, you know, like I don't have MS, and so it's always easy to be like, why do I have this thing? The thing that my dad said that he shared with me is he realized more and more, at first he kept it to himself, like his diagnosis, he didn't tell anyone. And then it started to get to the point where he couldn't not tell people
because his eyes.
Yeah. And he said, as he started to tell people, he was has been so amazed over the years of like every single person, it unifies people, and every single person has supported and helped and just like dropped everything else to be there and support him. And especially as a man, I think it's like hard to ask for help or be vulnerable. And so I think for my dad to see that, he just was, it's softened him so much. Like we joke, like my dad is like so soft now, he cries all the time. But like the first time I had seen him cry, like, you know, pretty much like most of my life was when I told him I wanted to produce a short film based on his story. And that like,
I remember you said
so beautiful. It just was like a full circle moment of, and like I said earlier, of like, we are creatures that are born to transform pain into beauty, whether that be through making something creative or through telling your story to other people and inspiring them when they're going through something hard. And so I think like I'm always just so fascinated, especially when I meet people that are so strong in the midst of really hard things, like how they find that strength. And so that was my initial question. But I also think that there's a balance. I've found sometimes when I am like, I'm just going to ignore this, I'm going to push through, but my body's telling me something and I need to listen. And kind of like, for me, a lot of my healing with my physical conditions has been learning that I don't have to do everything. I don't have to hold it all together. I can rest.
I think that's the point, because the other thing that came to get back to that question, because I think there's multiple answers, is you need to give yourself the moments to actually feel like shit and feel bad and be angry and express it. I think the key in all of this that I've known, it's like the good, the bad, and the ugly of it all. As long as you can, you know, it's like a trash bin. If it fills up, you have to empty it, otherwise it stinks. And so I think I gave myself those moments, a lot of moments of feeling like crap and really being sad and really crying it out. And, you know, because I think if you hold it in, you don't get anywhere. So that's, I think, like another part of it. And like you said, it's like, I think it's relating to what you're saying, but you really have to give yourself the permission to not be okay sometimes. And that's part of your healing. Is like, it's like how many stages they say they are of grief that you go through?
5? Is it there? Oh gosh, 5?
I think it's 5. That. I don't know. People are going to be like, wait, there's this many. You know, and I think there is really some truth to that. I know there's like, you know, denial, acceptance, like, you know, there's different parts. I don't know their order. I wish I like looked at that before sitting down with you. But I think that that's like a real thing. And you kind of need to go through that process.
Yeah, it's so important. And especially like, I don't know the science behind all of this, but I've heard so many times of like how if we don't deal with our emotional, like how we're actually feeling and our mental health, then it will manifest in physical ailments.
100%. That's why I think this actually happened to me, if I'm being honest. Like, I think I've kind of almost earned this right now to wear this like more of a transparency coat, because I had a lot to work on. I mean, I still do, but I think being in a place where I was suppressing so much and I didn't have the happiest situations going on. I wasn't listening always to my inner voice of like where I should be going, what I should be doing, I should be around. And I think, and then again, toxic relationships are a huge thing to rid yourself of, or at least learn how to protect your energy from. Because I think a lot of this, you know, we don't know what causes this. They really don't know. I have a bunch of theories. My mom has different theories. You know, every neurologist, by the way, it's funny. I have this running joke. I say, the only whore I am is I am a doctor whore, because I see so many of them and I don't let them know. And I kind of gather information from all of them. And I've created my own protocol, my own way of dealing and like healing. And I mean, which that's a whole other thing in of itself, like my process of how my healing journey. But you really, again, in life in general, you have to be your own advocate. You have to be your own best friend, you know? And we're all, I think, a lot of times waiting, you know, on something or someone or that job or that lover or whoever to come in and like save us and like make everything okay. And like the truth is, like, we can do that with ourselves.
Absolutely.
And it's work, it's exercise.
Yeah. And I found a lot of times is something I work on, because I noticed that I tend to be an advocate for my friends and tell it, oh, just slow down, rest, be easy on yourself. Meanwhile, I put so much pressure on myself. And it's interesting, like my neck and my back injury, it is taught me like that mental and emotional stuff that I need to work on too. Like it's all connected. And I literally, when I get stressed out, and when most people get stressed, like you carry stress in your neck and your shoulders. So now I'm way more sensitive to when I'm starting to carry stress and just like grit through it instead of like breathing through it. And so it's almost because I have like pain a lot more in my back, which is frustrating. It's become almost like a better barometer of when I'm starting to store the emotional stuff there. And I actually, so I had a car accident, which is what had caused this. I went through months of treatment with the chiropractor, and like they cleared me in December, and then, but I still have to go back like once a month. Recently? Yeah.
Ooh, okay. I'm glad you're okay.
Yeah, me too. But I had a little bit of a frustrating like hiccup. Recently I was on this like camping retreat thing, and there was this swing thing where they strap like 3 people in, and it like takes you back, and it like just like floats out into the mountains. It's just like beautiful. And it's like, oh, this seems like, it did not seem like a injury prone thing. It seemed very mellow. I almost was like, oh, it's so like
look how cute and quaint.
Yeah, it didn't seem like intense.
Yeah.
So I got on it, and as soon they release you on like this bungee thing, and as soon as they release you, I felt my neck jolt, and I was like, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no. It didn't hurt at first, and that's why I'm like, I do think so much of this is with mine is like so much mental too, because I went directly into fear mode because I was triggered from, you know, like the trauma, honestly, of like healing and going through that long process. And I'm like, if I re-injured myself, like I'm going back to square one. And then I was beating myself up of like, you're so stupid. Why did you get on that? And it was just this like downward spiral of like, I also have OCD. I've shared that a lot on this podcast, but like, part of how that manifests for me is like ruminating thoughts. Then it's like, and obsessing over my health. So then it's like, goes down that path of like, you're feeling everything and I'm noticing everything. And so anyway, I did actually end up I went to my chiropractor. He said I did throw out my back a little bit. And so like all this week it's been like dealing just like with pain and that. And then again, I think most of it has been like me beating myself up. And I was at church this morning, and you can't make this stuff up. Someone at the end, like they have like a prayer team if you need prayer for anything. And as the pastor was closing, he said, and someone on our prayer team got like a word of knowledge, kind of just like sensed that someone needed prayer for back pain. And if that's you, like we'd love to pray for you, come up. So I was like, I think that's me. So like I went up, and this girl's praying over me, and like without me telling anyone, she's like, I just really sense like God's love for you, and that he doesn't want you to beat yourself up. Like this is not your fault. And there's so much shame that you're carrying through this injury, and like a lie that you can't be like free. And just like, I'm just like weeping. And it was a long-winded way of saying like, and I've been aware of like the mental physical connection. But this past week when I was injured, I was trying to convince myself that I could still do all the things that I could do. So I was still trying to like do light workouts. But I had this moment where I was like walking from my bedroom into my living room. I was carrying my laptop. I was carrying like SD memory cards, like for podcast stuff, hard drive, something else, and a LaCroix in my hand. And I'm like trying to adjust like the thermostat with all that in my hands. And as I did, I dropped the LaCroix and exploded everywhere. And I just was like, I literally said out loud, I don't know who I was talking to. I was like, I'm trying to carry too much. And then I just started weeping because I felt like it was like, not just what it was in my hands. I'm trying to do too much.
Yeah.
And it's resulting in me injuring myself. Like I was like tripping, and then like feeling like I was jolting my back. And like, I just was like, why do I keep hurting myself? And it's like, I literally am just trying to carry too much. And so for me, a big part of my healing process, which like I had dealt with prior, but I thought I was healed, was just like learning how to give myself that time and that space to process. And so that's my like rant about.
No, but I think, you know, it's funny. I felt a few things with you saying that kind of popped to my mind. It's, you know, finding the positive lesson in it, and you're taking it and you're finding some kind of way to make it more of like a positive thing, an affirmation to, you know, make a change. And that is really important. And like the things that can come into your life because of that, like there is beauty in everything if you like look deep enough and like, you know, and I know I'd love to talk about that. But the other thing that I was thinking when you were talking was, you know, when you go through, the best way I can describe it, it's like your body betraying you, right? Yeah. And so we talk about like trust with like people and like things and relationships. There's also like a trust with our body and a trust within ourselves. Yeah. And when that betrayal or trust happens within your own body, the relationship with yourself becomes a little bit interesting, and you lose a little bit of that trust in yourself. And like I talk about my MS in general of like, look, I'm doing amazing right now, better than anyone ever thought I would, and doctors told me that I would ever be. But at the same time, I'm not cured. Yeah. I have this is something that is like you know, a for life thing. Hopefully they'll come out. I'm going to cure myself. Like, but you know, and I think of it like this almost, where it's like, there's this like monster in like my forest that is my brain. And I know he's there. I can hear him breathing sometimes. And I know at any point, if he really wants to, he can like come out and get me and attack me again. And so there's like living with that, but I found like a peace in that. And my peace in that is if I have too much going on and there's too much light around me and I have too many goals and too many people and just like really like love, then I'm too busy for him to come and get me. There's too much around me protecting me. Like that's kind of what I've turned it into in my own way. And, you know, some people may call that denial. I call it like, no, that's like my power, right? And I have my days where, trust me, I can hear him growl a little and I'm like, oh my God. And there's no weirder feeling, and I'm sure you can relate to what you're going through with your stomach, of being afraid of your own body. Like something that like you are not supposed to be afraid of, or not supposed to be afraid of when you're young. Like you plan, like I always plan like, look, I'm going to get older and then there's going to be like problems, like whatever, but that's down the line, girl. Like that's not now. And by the way, my friend and I joke, like I have an inner protector. Her name is like Nikita, and she comes out in these moments big. Yes,
that's amazing,
sing, queen. And I'm grateful for her. But she, God, that probably sounds nuts. But she, no, you know, there's you can call it denial, but I think again, look, I mean, even my close friends or boyfriends sometimes, like they try to be like more realistic with me about things, or like I have a big treatment tomorrow. Okay. Like I'm doing a big infusion. It's a, 6-hour long infusion. My mom's flying out tonight. Like we have a lot of going on in this situation. And it's like a cousin to chemo. So I don't feel great after it, but, I've had times where it's made me extremely sick for weeks, or longer. And my last time it was like, okay, but I'm going to Portugal on the 2nd. Like I have to be, or the 3rd. I think it's the 3rd. And that's like a week away. And I'm like, no. And I'm making these plans and I've continued. That's the one thing I've also done is like, given myself things to look forward to, that's like amazing. Making plans. And a huge gift of that, honestly, has been the people in my life and my boyfriend. Shout out to my boyfriend. Kind of helping me along the way. And, the thing that pops in my mind though, when thinking about like, there's so many people that don't have that support, like your dad, like he had these people like me, I had these people and like these really cool things going in my life that I'm like, I have to get better. I don't accept this. And, it's funny. One of the things I feel called to, and I don't know what it looks like yet, but creating some kind of form or place, I won't say the name because I'm sort of kind of loosely working on it, to help them. Because look, we're so privileged and blessed in where we get to be and what we get to do, and clearly the love that we have and support from friends and family. And there's so many people like, I think, it's funny, what makes me cry more than anything lately is like, I think of the people that don't have that. Wow. And how did they get through it? I was connected with a woman who, her name's Lois, and she's another angel that came into my world. And she has an autoimmune condition called scleroderma, which at times can make what I'm going through look like a cakewalk. And she really like prepared me. Like in the beginning, like she funny enough, Phil, the doctor in the hospital, like he was having a bad day. She was a patient when he was doing his rounds, and she goes, what's going on? She's from Europe, so she's had her little accent. She said, what's going on with you? Like, why you seem so sad? Sorry, Lois, I don't mean to mimic you, but I love your voice. And he told her, like, the person I'm with had MS, and and she's like, I need to meet your girlfriend. Aww. And he got her number, and it took me months to actually call her. And finally, at my lowest point, like I found this little piece of paper of this person I've never seen. I call her, and she would be on the phone with me probably a few hours every night when I was like not able to walk, in bed, having talking issues. Like I had so many issues. Like there were so many different symptoms that happened from the hospital on, which again is a long story to go on and on about. But she saved me in a lot of ways. Like I feel so lucky in that sense where I had all these people that just prepared me. Like she told me like what was going to happen to my friendships, what to expect, what was going to happen with family, what to look forward to with different treatments, like what may happen. And I was really prepared. And she's become like I call her mom. Like she's like my, second mom. And, especially like she's my autoimmune mom. Like I'll never forget the first time I talked to her, she knew who I was when I said my name, and she's like, "Welcome to the club, darling." And I was like, "What club?" And she's like, "The autoimmune club." And we've had this little thing together. But I mean, it's like creating something like that where people can really, I don't know what that looks like or if I'll have the energy to do whatever. That's why I'm kind of being loose about it. But
that's beautiful.
Something needs to, there's so many people that don't have the support.
Yeah. Well, that whole story gives me the chills because I think like one of the like harder, like big questions of life is like, why is there pain and suffering and all these things? And it can be really hard to grapple with. But I look in in your story and things I've experienced in my family, and I think that I've always seen a through line of there's this painful thing, but I believe in God. I believe that God is like, he'll send people on your path to get you through. And there's something so beautiful that like that relationship with Lois, it sounds like it's a beautiful relationship that's like blessed your life. And like, I wish that there wasn't this terrible like disease that you have that both of you have to create that unity. But I'm sure that like that relationship has blessed you a lot, and that love and that joy. And I think you can apply that to any situation. Like there's always something beautiful that can come out of it. And I've just seen that you're always equipped with just enough to get through those things, whether it's people being sent into your life or, encouragement or whatever it may look like. And the flip side of that is I also think that the thing that breaks your heart the most, or the most painful thing that you've been through, a lot of times can really be connected to like your purpose as well. Yeah. And so just hearing that that's your pain that you've been through, and then also like what breaks your heart for other people and that empathy you have, now you're fueling it into something positive and impactful. And I'm just like, I have the chills thinking about it because it's incredible that it can be really easy to get stuck in like a resentful, spirit. But I think just seeing how you're allowing everything, the good, the bad, the ugly, like you said, to flow through, and now you're channeling that for good and to help other people is just incredible.
Thanks. I mean, I want to make these things, one thing to say them, right? It's the next thing is putting pen to paper. And, I really plan on doing that. And, it's funny. I made little deals with the universe along the way, call it God, whatever, of if I can get to this point, I will do this, and I will, you talk to yourself when you have these things, whether it's a relationship with God or the universe or higher power or whatever. But I totally resonate with what you said about things. There's so many things that have happened with this journey that I'm like, God, like, how did that happen? Like, even down in my relationship, I met my boyfriend, like the someone who I love immensely. I've never had a love like this in my life, in a waiting room in Panama getting stem cells. Wow. And so I happened to be in Panama in a waiting room. We sat across from each other, and like the rest is history. So I mean,
why was he there? I love the love story. I want to hear.
I mean, that's a whole other podcast, and I don't know how much time we have. Yeah. So his name is Steven. He when he was little, oh my God, I hope I don't butcher this. It was either colitis or Crohn. No, I think it was colitis. Okay. So he had an autoimmune disease that, as a child, that he survived. Okay. And one of his dear friends, Rafi, was kind of dealing with a very similar situation as an adult. Now, my boyfriend luckily had healed himself. Like he still has, issues from surgery and things he had as a kid, but he's living a great life, and he's for the most part very healthy, fit, but he has this like this understanding. Like we have this like understanding with each other of like knowing, we've both been through something kind of crazy. But he was there, I'm so long-winded, but he was there supporting one of his best friends who was going through something similar to get stem cells. And he happened to just be like, you know what, I'm here, I'm just going to do it. And at the time I was gifted, again, talking about being extremely privileged. I was gifted a stem cell treatment by a very good girlfriend of mine. Jeez. And so I happened to, and her boyfriend, and shout out Kylie and James. And they wonderful people. They had me go to Panama, and that's where I met him. And actually part of my journey, like, you know, doing stem cells, I mean, some people help, some people doesn't. It was really helpful for me, you know. I know it's funny because there's so much to say, right? It's like, I was not walking. And then like, how do you get from that to like this, sorry, Mike, this point today where I'm like, I walked here, I drove here, you know, and the whole journey of it all is just not, I mean, there's so much to unpack, right? So it's like where to go. But yes, I fell in love with someone that I would have never otherwise met if I didn't, like this disease in a way brought me to him. Wow. And he's been a huge part of my healing journey as well.
And so I know this is such a loaded question, but
we love loaded questions.
What has that healing journey looked like? I mean, I know there's like all the technical things in broad strokes. Like what was the healing? What was kind of like the emotional healing journey like?
I think one thing I want to tie on is more of the technical, like medicines. And then I think we can get to the emotional. I think they kind of go hand in hand, but like the biggest thing for anyone out there in general for health is get your inflammatory markers down. Like all this comes from inflammation. And we live in such a time where we're so inflamed by all the foods we eat and gluten and dairy. And look, we have like, I mean, I'm sure sitting in this room, we have Wi-Fi going through us, these cell phones, like there's a lot of stuff going on that's progressed so quickly and our bodies have not fully caught up to that. So I think the biggest thing is I would recommend anybody to first, I cut out gluten and dairy instantly.
Okay.
I, want to do anything to bring down inflammation. It was hard. Like, look, food is amazing. I love food. It's so hard. The only time I eat dairy or gluten is I go to Italy because it's the purest, non-bleached, most farm to table type of situation. Even then it could be a little inflammatory, but so cutting out, anything that can cause inflammation. I think getting on a good vitamin regimen when that's taking things like, fish oil is really important. Turmeric, very important supplement.
Turmeric. Yeah. That has helped me. It was interesting, and I'm not to interject.
No.
When I didn't know what was going on with my accident, like I got in an accident. It wasn't like a super bad accident. Like someone rear-ended me at full speed and I had like full whiplash. Like
that
almost
sounds pretty bad.
Yeah, but it could have been a lot worse. Like I didn't hit my head, but I almost did. And the whiplash was so severe that I came to find out it gave me a concussion because like still, even if you don't have contact, like your brain like jarring around.
The car stops,
and, like, hitting
your body doesn't. So that's the crazy thing about an accident.
Yeah.
Your body stops, the car stops, your body doesn't.
Yeah. So that was, and then then I found out that through an MRI, my C2 and my C3 were bulging, which then was creating, because I was having all these migraines and all this brain fog. So I didn't know. I thought I was fine because I thought, that accident wasn't too severe. I felt like I had some stiffness, but like, that's normal. And then a few days later, I was flying home for my grandmother's funeral. So I thought that maybe it was just like, had all these like migraines after the flight. And I was like, it was probably because I was flying and like all the emotional stuff and probably just like, I'm probably just stressed out. And again, kind of like I was relating to like your journey, like leading up to it, even though it's like a much more minor situation. Like I kept ignoring the signs. And then I started to really freak out of like, I can't think straight. I feel like I'm not myself. And so finally they diagnosed like what it was. And like, it was a combination of like the concussion and then also the C2 and C3 creating pressure at like the base of my skull, like creating the migraines. And so then I went through that treatment. But before they diagnosed what it was, I was just like taking all these supplements. I thought there was something wrong with my brain. So I literally was like, I just need to take like all B2 vitamins. And like, I was looking up like, what are good things for your brain?
Some lion's mane in there.
Yeah. And I remember I was, again, so LA, I was at Erewhon and I was just like looking
Erewhon's
for.
LA? What? No, sorry.
I was like looking for wellness shots and I thought I knew which one I was going to get. And then one of the very kind workers there came over and was like, what are you looking for, ma'am? And I was like, I'm getting this. And he's like, well, what are your symptoms? And then like, I'm pretty sure I started crying to the Erewhon guy because I was like in so much pain.
It's Erewhon. They've seen people cry. It's okay.
And he was like, long way to say, he was like, you should take the turmeric. And I took the turmeric, and it was the first thing in weeks that I did not have the migraine. And I spent probably like $200 on turmeric shots from like those few weeks. It was ridiculous. And then I was like, I should just get
the pill.
I know. That's when I was like,
you can do the pill. The shots are great.
Like, there has to be a cheaper way.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, there's pills. So I got the pill, the turmeric pill, and it's helped me so much. So anyway, I don't know enough I haven't done enough research of like inflammation, what causes it, how to curtail it, like how to know if you're inflamed. And I probably should do more research. So this is very fascinating to me.
Yeah.
Carry on.
No. I mean, thank you for sharing. Like, look, it's amazing though. Yeah. These things really do help work. And I think something that'd be cool. Do you link things at the end of these? Like, or I think maybe we can even put together a little thing of supplements that like, for listeners or people that want, like, I'm more than happy to share some of the things that I've took. I mean, the problem is, things that I've taken. The problem is everybody's different, right? Yeah. So what works for me might not work for you, right? So that's kind of the heartbreaking thing about it. Like, I think I started this with saying, just segueing back again, this is so funny, this podcast thing, the jumping around, and I keep my producer keeps saying, wait, you didn't tie the end on that. Yeah. So, my mom filmed my whole journey, and I started sharing it on Instagram. I made an Instagram account called My MS Journal. Wow. And I started getting a lot of engagement right away. And some of the videos have like 10,000 views, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But it was really like my whole struggle and like my healing journey. And honestly, like it's sad because I started sharing, and I have now I have 4 years of content. I think I maybe got 6 months in on actual content because it was too painful for me. Totally. I wasn't ready. Yeah. But interestingly enough, a lot of people still to this day, it's not really active, and maybe I need to, and talking about it, I need to, it's something I need to do. It's a deal I made with the universe, and sorry, I'm not making good on it. I need to make good on it. People reach out constantly about help and what I can do for them, or like, what did I do or whatever. And I think, again, it's kind of even that, putting together a supplement list, whatever. But, back to that, there are things you can do. Like, a lot of people, unfortunately, I hate to say it, and you know who you are if you're listening, you're stubborn. You will not, consistency is key. People want to take one pill and things to be fixed and done. And a lot of it, this is work. Like, a lot of how I got to where I am was work. A lot of work. It was a full-time job beyond my full-time job that I had, so you have to be willing to do that, and your life has to be worth it. And like, to me, I'm like, look, I'm young. Like, I remember they told me, I was diagnosed obviously January 8th, 2018. My birthday was in May. Wow. And they're like, look, you most likely will never be able to walk again unassisted, because especially like the different lesions and where they were. And I was like, my birthday is in May. I'm going to wear heels to my birthday party, and nothing is going to stop me. And anyway, so I made it to my birthday in heels. I had a cane, but I these determining factors of being like, people also ask me, and this is going to sound shallow, it's just honesty. Well, what are things that helped you get through this, or like, things that inspired you to keep going? And a huge one too, I'm sorry, but it was vanity. I was not willing to accept that I was going to walk with a walker and a cane. Like, no, the fuck not. I am not. I mean, if I have to, I have to, but like, no, I'm not doing that. Like, and so it was like going from, wheelchair and physical therapy and all that to walker, to cane, to, the only thing I've kept out of anything, I've gotten rid of everything. And it was funny. I remember my mom, with her New York guys, and it's like, no, but you don't know if you're going to need it again. So don't get rid of it because you might need it. You never know. And I'm like, if I don't have it, Mom, it's not there to go back to. So it was like these little things. And I believe these things are real, and again, like, to this day, I'm living proof of that. Wow. Right. So if I can go from not walking to, and losing my ability to speak properly. I mean, I'm still blind in this eye. I'm deaf in this ear. I can't really feel my legs from my knees down. So it's not all perfect. Like, I know I'm like being like, you're like, bing, but it's, I still have things.
It's called imperfect for a reason.
Imperfect for a reason. It's the perfect podcast. My favorite quote, by the way, you come to find love, and this can be with yourself or other people, not by finding the perfect person or feeling perfect within yourself, but seeing a person's imperfectly. No, wait, sorry. You come to find love not by finding the perfect person, but by seeing an imperfect person perfectly. Yeah. And I think that goes even into you, right? Like if you translate that, I tried doing it like universal and it didn't, I flopped it a little, but like, you know, if you come to find love, not by finding the perfect person, but seeing an imperfect perfectly, seeing an imperfect person perfectly. Like that really is, you know, another key into healing. But I love the imperfect name, by the way.
Well, it's funny. This is like a bit of a tangent, but I have a scar, like right above my eyebrow because my freshman year
see a scar.
Thank you.
Makeup and lighting.
Yeah, there we go. I walked into a pole. I wish it was like a funnier, like
you picked a fight with a pole. I get it.
Yeah, I wish it was a cooler story. I was not doing anything cool. The second question I always get was, were you wasted? I was sober as the daylight. We were walking to the pregame at my college. Like we were about to go drink, but anyway, I was completely sober. I was looking at like something on my friend's phone. These were all new friends too. I was a freshman in college, and I remember just like I hit the pole, and I remember the first thought was like, I'm so embarrassed because like I don't know these people. I'm just gonna laugh it off, and then. But
you were really hurt.
And I'm like, ha, and then they're all like, oh, and I just see blood dripping down. And then that's when the second thought I had was, oh my gosh, I just ruined my acting career, which that's a whole other podcast of like the fact that that's a sign of trauma. Like
no. But I mean, look, I mean, things happening in general. I'm like, my whole life and career is ruined too from what I'm going through. And that is, I think that's a huge conversation to have for another time. But anyway, keep going.
Well, so anyway, I have this scar now. And it's funny, we laugh about it, but sometimes it like comes back more. Like it depends on like the sun.
Scar. It's so interesting. You did good on scar cream.
Well, thankfully, shout out to my big sis in the sorority, Ashley Cockshori.
Yes, Ashley.
She's from LA, and so she kind of like knew she just knew what she was doing. Her mom's a doctor, and she's the one that brought me to the ER. And we're sitting at the Ronald Reagan Center at UCLA, and by the time they let me in, they're like, oh, she definitely needs stitches. And she had been on the phone with her mom and the whole time, and her mom's like, do not let them give her stitches there. They'll make her look like a unicorn. Yeah. So I would have never even thought twice. I would have been like, yeah, give me stitches. But Ashley was like, I'm taking her to a plastic surgeon first thing in the morning. Like, she's an actress. You're not touching her face. And just was like my guardian angel.
Yes, Ashley.
But I wouldn't have known any different. And then thankfully we live in LA and there's a plastic surgeon on every corner. So like I called every single
great ones. Be very sure on who you pick, guys, in LA.
Well, I was just going off of Yelp reviews because everyone else was full. Like it was an emergency, and Dr. Cohen apparently did a fine job. I don't know. Shout out to Dr. Cohen. But anyhow, it's something that I still sometimes get insecure about. And a lot of people usually, especially when I tell guys that, like, they're like, oh, I don't even see it. Like, you look beautiful. And I'm like, that makes me feel good, obviously. But like recently I was dating this guy, and he, without me even bringing up the scar, he was like, I love your scar, by the way. Like, and he wasn't like he was just like, he was saying like he like what everything about me, right? And like what you were saying. And at first I was so triggered because I was like, other guys don't see the scar, like and I was like journaling about it later, and I was like, would you rather have someone that doesn't see the scar or someone that sees the scar and loves you anyway? And I just had this moment. It's like obviously physical scar, but that relates to other things. And so what you just shared, that quote is like, I think it reminded me of that. And I think it's spot on. It's like, whether we're talking about someone else noticing it or ourselves, it's like being able to share all of who you are and accept yourself. Because it comes first with, it sounds like very like, woo, but like accept yourself first, then other people will accept that. So that was my tangent, but
no. It's a good tangent. And by the way, it's amazing because I'm sitting here and there is a light on your face, and like, shout out Dr. Cohen because Dr. Cohen, he did a good. I can't see, and it's funny. I have, because of this, I have a scar on my head that was, from stuff to do with relating to this, and you know, or things like now it's funny. My boyfriend, he calls me glitch sometimes because I have these like glitches. If I get hot or whatever, I'll tend to move and be like a little drunk, but he loves me through it. He's like, I think it's really cute. He's like, I'll be like, you know, sometimes sitting, and maybe it'll happen a little through this. I don't know. I feel like I'm actually feeling pretty good today. Shout out to doing vitamin IVs and NAD. He'll be like, oh, you're glitching. Like, hi, glitch. And, you know, I'll be like, oh, and I'll be in a moment thinking like, and other people will call this out sometimes too. And I'm like, I thought I was like being normal. Yeah. Like, that sucks. But they like, he thinks it's adorable. He's like, I love your little glitches. And they've gotten so much better. Like I used to have conversations and I'd be like I couldn't, I mean, I'm trying to mimic it like genuinely, but it's something like that. Or like tics or triggers or dropping things. It's funny. My boyfriend said to me once, and not in a mean way, like we were totally like just joking, but he was like, how many times do you think that people just saw you and thought you were drunk? And I'm like, because it's funny. There's some, I heard about this once, but it's like, I don't have MS. I'm not drunk. I have MS because it does, you can slur a little, or if you get hotter, MS is a very sensitive thing, like of, you know, depending on the elements and how you're feeling or sleep or whatever. So, you know, I have these moments and it can be really embarrassing. And like, that to me, it's like a scar, right? But it's like a scar you can just, it's moving and it has a life of its own. And it's just, there's elements about it that really sucks sometimes. And like, you know, I've luckily I roll with the punches, and I learned to make fun of myself, even if it's painful, like you walking into the pole and laughing it off. I laugh at it. And sometimes I cry about it too, but like you know, I think healing things with humor is an important thing. Oh, and back to just the supplement thing to just round out. Like, I think, you know, we can attach or talk about some different supplements.
I can link it in the show notes for sure.
But, you know, I think, but am I segueing too much?
No.
Again, doing my...
No, this is great. I'm like, I want to know it for myself.
Yeah. I think, you know, we could put together off the top of my head, like I'm very good with my supplements, and diet is really important. I think if people can get access to vitamin IV drips, you know, with like a normal mileage cocktail, or things with like glutathione in there, is really important. I do it, you know, twice a month, usually, sometimes more, sometimes less. But I just really give a lot of love and attention to my body. I remember when this happened, and I don't know if this is the best way to do it. I kind of went a little nuts, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to marry every holistic thing that I can do with also the Western medicine. I created my own protocol, but the problem was I don't know what worked in the beginning because I was stacking on too much. I was doing like hyperbaric oxygen chambers, infrared light LED beds, like cryotherapy, every kind of supplement under the sun, acupuncture, like tons and tons of things. And I've limited some of that now. Now I do some of those things on occasions, or when I feel like I'm flaring or whatever. But, you know, yeah, it's just, there's a lot of things out there, and it's kind of like, you know, long story long, short, you got to find what works for you, you know, and it's a lot of it's trial and error. And again, the thing, a lot of people say, I don't have the money, I can't do that. You can eat pretty clean for reasonably priced, you know, so there really is an excuse for that. Like, and again, if people don't want to, they don't believe in the no doing gluten or dairy, like just try it and see how you feel, you know, you have nothing to lose, but everything to gain. Right. Of course. And I think regarding supplements, like I've been taking Pilates, recently, and I love it. It's been great for me. But my instructor's mom has MS, and luckily she unfortunately was diagnosed years ago. It's a different ball game today with some of the treatments they have. But very stubborn, eats gluten, eats dairy, doesn't take any supplements, is just not willing to like change her ways. And like that's unfortunate because if you are so not about change and like shooting for that, change won't happen. It's like the girl sitting in her bedroom or living room waiting for the Prince Charming to come and find her. Sorry, girl, he's not going to find you in your living room. Right. Your health is not going to improve unless you're proactive. Yeah. And it could be in simple ways. And you know, everyone talks about the finances of it. You can put together a supplement protocol that's like reasonably priced. Like I think you can find, and again, don't quote me on this, we can put attachments in the end, but you can get supplements to last you for a good month or two. And maybe that is, you know, $100 or whatever. And I mean, maybe that's even like, look, if you're not doing well, ask for help, you know,
Absolutely.
see if there are ways you can, you know, get that help, because a lot of people have pride and ego and whatever. And that's been a huge thing for me, right? Because I had a lot of pride and even some ego. Like I was the helper. I don't get help. And I luckily, like I've learned to be like, it's okay to be like, look, I'm not okay today. And I still, well, everyone's like, you're being a really good liar today or a good actress. Like I still might fall into my old identity a bit, but you know, there are ways and things you can do that don't have to break the bank. And the diet is the best way, starting with it. And then if you could be fortunate enough to dabble in supplements, Amazon's great. They deliver a lot of these. I've sourced, you know, some pretty good ones. Or going to the drugstore and getting them, you know, not Air One, because you'll definitely pay a lot more there.
Don't make my mistake.
Right. But, you know, and then it's funny, the other thing, something that just came to mind, and again, is like identity. And I think we talked about that earlier. You know, I think through life, we all go through this progression of like who we are, and it changes. Like life events or things, or losing a job, you can lose your identity. Like when something like this happens, it's a little bit more extreme, right?
It's like you said, it's literally your body.
Your body, And I think the thing is like embracing and letting go, right? Like there are dreams I had as Nikko before that unfortunately I will not be able to do now. But now I'm learning and gaining all sorts of new dreams and you know, ideas for the future. And I've changed so much. And you know, and again, there's still a lot of work to do. Like both spiritually and like mentally with things, but you know.
Yeah. Well, you're doing great. It is. It's funny, like how much of this is just about acceptance, you know, like whether it's talking about MS or, you know, even as I was shared, it sounds so silly, but like me getting on that swing, like I was beating myself up that I did something to like take a bunch of steps backwards, and just like accepting, like, no, I can't be scared to live my life. Like I was just living my life, and that's part of life. You're going to get hurt, you know, things are going to happen, but we're doing the best you can and accepting even when something happens, whether it was your fault or not, or just like the cards that were dealt, like accepting it and then moving forward. And so it's a lot easier to do with things like getting on a swing or whatever. But like, I just think it's beautiful how you've accepted this, and you've, you know, I'm sure, like you said, there's times where you like that monster in your ear.
I don't accept it too,
but
right?
that's because you're human, you know? And I think it takes so much humility just to like say, you know, those dreams, that's not part of what's possible right now, but I have this like these other beautiful possibilities because of what I'm experiencing. So I know that takes a lot of courage. So I just want to shine light on that because you're amazing.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. You
know, I think to change with these type of situations happens. And some of it, a lot of it isn't going to feel good. A lot of it is not going to feel good. And, you know, some of it will feel wonderful, and you'll meet again, like people like Lois or my boyfriend, or like there's some beauty, so much beauty, like sitting here, you know, whatever, that you grow, and it can be positive. But there is a lot of things that are not going to be easy. There's a lot of relationships you will lose along the way. I mean, look, especially living in LA, right? Like I was the person before that would do a birthday and, you know, I'd have like 100 people show up, and I'd have great relationships. You know, when people realize at the end of the day, you don't have the flu and you're not going to get better, they leave, but they're not the right people anyway.
Right,
so it's this instant weeding out of things that you never even thought that you needed, but it's been a positive thing, because then you can save your energy for better people. Yeah.
And I think that's just like growing up regardless. You know, I've noticed over the years as I've gotten older, like there's people that I, you know, have just like lost touch with, and I love them, but that doesn't mean that like I have any ill intentions towards them. But you get older and you get wiser, and you grow, and you realize the path you're on, and relationships I think come in ebbs and flows, and some people are going in the same direction as you, some people aren't. And I think before I used to so desperately hold on to, I want to keep everyone in my circle because I'm the same. Like I love just having a lot of different friends, and I just love people. And I realized like the identity that I was holding on to of like being a people pleaser, of like, if I don't feel like I'm good with every single person and keeping up with everyone, like I'm not loved, or I'm not a good enough friend, or any of these things. And to your point, like that sucks your energy. And for me, a big part of like growing up, so to speak, and kind of like my friend puts it, of like your late 20s being like mental puberty, is just like letting go of that, you know, and learning how to protect my energy and knowing that like sometimes less is more, you know, and the people that are meant to be there will be there through every season. And some friends will drift away, some friends will come back.
Okay.
So we have talked about so much today. I honestly might have to have you back for part 2 because we can keep talking about so many things, I think. One thing I just want, the last question to ask is, if you could tell your younger self one thing, what would it be?
Oh gosh, that's so loaded.
I know. Or let me say, if you could leave listeners with one thing, what would it be?
Well, I actually was going to say this even to myself, like, if you allow it to be, it's going to be okay.
Wow.
If you allow it to be, it will be okay.
Wow. That's beautiful. Yeah. Perfect way to end this. Yeah. Thank you so much for, you know, just being so vulnerable and sharing your story. I know that it's not always easy. And so I've been moved by this conversation, and I know that people listening will be too. And where can people like connect with you? I know you said you had that MS journal.
I do. I have it. I'll be more active on it. It's on Instagram. It's called My MS Journal. Exactly spelled how it should be. And yeah, like, you know, I do respond to DMs and things on there. I have to get a little bit better about it, but I think maybe this is even a conversation to kind of inspire that and share more of the journey, because it was, you know, it's 4 years of a healing journey. And I've done so many things that I couldn't sit in one sitting and be like, I've done these, you know, it's the supplements, it's stem cells, it's this, that, it's the growing mentally, spiritually, getting rid of relationships. Like there's so much that ties into it. But again, at the end of the day, it'll be okay if you allow it to be.
Amazing. Well, you're amazing. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
And thanks everyone for listening. I'll see you next time.